So we'll discuss about the anatomy of the ear. So these are the function. You can utilize your ear for this purpose also. All these earrings, or you can use for this function. This God has made for this function, like collects the sound, localization, then resonator, and protection, then sensitive. Ear lobule is most sensitive part of the whole ear. So this is our structures, anatomical structures. It is divided into three parts: external ear, middle ear, and internal ear. So we will discuss one by one. So external ear, this is the first part or the most lateral part of the ear. It is consisting of the ear attached part to the lateral aspect of the head and canal leading inward. So this is this ear, your lateral part or this external ear. It is consisting of, one is called pinna. So this pinna is your pinna plus your external auditory meatus or canal leading inward, which is attached to the lateral aspect of the head. Then second part is called middle ear, which is a cavity inside the petrous part of the temporal bone. So here you can see this pink color structure. This is our middle ear. So middle ear inside the petrous part of the temporal bone only. Then this middle ear, it is you're separating the external canal, this middle ear and your external ear. It is divided or it is separated by tympanic membrane. And this middle ear cavity, it is connected internally to the pharynx by a narrow tube. Then third part or internal ear, which is again, it is inside the bony cavity, consisting of a series of cavities within the petrous part of the temporal. Again you see that spiral structures, that is our internal ear. So internal ear is also inside the petrous part of the temporal bone. And middle ear is also inside the petrous part of the temporal bone. But external ear, it is divided into two parts. One is pinna, one is external acoustic meatus or auditory meatus. Pinna is attached to the lateral aspect of the head. Then external ear, auricle or pinna, which is the projecting from the side of the head. And external acoustic meatus, this is a canal leading inward, which actually helps in the transmission of the air wave from the external environment. So pinna acts as your rudder. Pinna or auricle, it acts as a rudder which receives the sound wave from the external environment. Then it is transmitting through the external acoustic meatus or external auditory meatus, which is ultimately it stuck on the tympanic membrane. Then from the tympanic membrane, this your sound wave is transmitted into a mechanical wave, and this mechanical wave is transmitted to the internal ear by means of our ear ossicles or bones of the middle ear. So auricle that lies on the on the side of the head and assists in capturing the sound. Auricle is made up of cartilage mainly. So it is covered with skin. So auricle, it is made up of cartilage and it is covered by skin, and it is having some depressions and elevation. So the large outside rim of this auricle, so this is our auricle, so large outside rim of this auricle is called helix. So most circumferentially, which is structure, that your structure is called, part is called helix. In the diagram it is shown. So helix, then there is a triangular fossa, just upper part of your pinna, there is a depression, that is your triangular fossa, that is, then your just anterior to the helix, there is an antihelix, that is again, it is extending from the upper part to the lower part, that is called antihelix. Then just anterior inferior to the antihelix, there is a depression, that is called concha. So concha is the depression at the center of the pinna, or you can say it is just lying antero-inferior aspect of the antihelix. There is a depression which is called concha. Then just anterior part of the pinna, anterior as well as lower aspect of the pinna. That is the just there is another cartilaginous elevation that is called tragus. Then there is from the tragus our ultimately external auditory meatus starts. Then just posterior part, if you come from the antihelix downward, from the superior aspect, if you come to the downward, there is again another elevation that is called antitragus. So tragus is on the anterior aspect and your antitragus is on the posterior aspect of the external auditory meatus. Then at the lower aspect, there is a fibrofatty tissue which is called lobule. So this is called ear lobule. Then come to the muscles of auricle. Auricle or pinna. So there are numerous intrinsic as well as extrinsic. Intrinsic means it starts or it is originated in the pinna and inserted into the pinna. Extrinsic means it may be originated from different aspect or different parts of the body, then it will be inserted into the pinna, or it is originated in the pinna, inserted into the other part of the head and neck region. So intrinsic muscles pass between the cartilaginous part of the auricle and may change the shape of the auricle. Actually, this function is not so evident in case of human being, which is more prominent in case of your animals like cow, horse. You may have seen that cow can just move their ear, or your elephant, they can move their ear, but human, very few people can move their pinna or auricle. So extrinsic muscles. So intrinsic muscles, they are originating from some cartilage and inserting into some cartilage of the pinna or auricle. Now extrinsic muscles, these are auricularis anterior. Then auricularis anterior means it is on the anterior aspect of the pinna. Auricularis superior, that is in the upper part or superior aspect of the pinna, and auricularis posterior, that is your posterior aspect of the pinna. So it is passed from the scalp or skull to the auricle, or may also play a role in positioning of the auricle. So when these muscles tone of the muscles become less, then what will happen? Your auricle is hanging downwards. So in old days, what will happen? Your pinna auricle, it is not it is just slightly, it is hanging downwards because of your decreased tone of the muscles in old days. Now nerve supply. So nerve supply is the motor nerve supply, both groups, that means intrinsic as well as extrinsic. These muscles are innervated by facial nerve. So if there is a facial nerve palsy, then your muscle tone will decrease. Then come to the sensory nerve supply. What I have said, that is motor nerve supply. Come to the sensory. Sensory is lateral surface. That is your lateral surface means this is the lateral surface. So lateral lower one third of the pinna, it is by great auricular nerve, that is your C2-3. Then upper two third is auriculotemporal nerve, a branch of the mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve. Then concha, auricular branch of the vagus. Concha is your central depression. I have said this is the concha. So this part is supplied by the vagus, auricular branch of the vagus nerve. Then medial surface. Medial surface means towards our skull, towards the skull. That is lower one third by great auricular nerve, like our lateral surface, same. Then upper two third by lesser occipital nerve. But in the medial surface, it is lateral surface, it is your auriculotemporal branch, that is your mandibular division. Here it is lesser occipital nerve. Then immensia concha. Immensia concha, it is again auricular branch of the vagus. Immensia concha means just in the concha there is one elevation. In the concha there is an elevation. So that your posterior aspect is your antihelix. Just concha, just anterior to the concha there is an elevation that is called immensia concha, which is again supplied by auricular branch of the vagus. Then arterial supply of the pinna or auricle, it is cranial surface, or you can say medial surface. It is an posterior part of the lateral surface. This is your posterior part of the lateral surface. Posterior part, this is posterior part of the lateral surface. It is by posterior auricular artery, which is a branch of external carotid artery. Anterior part of lateral surface, anterior part, this is the anterior part. So anterior aspect of the lateral surface is by superficial temporal artery, which is again branch of the external carotid artery. Venous drainage, so veins accompanying the arteries and drain into the superficial temporal artery, and finally external jugular veins. Then lymphatic drainage, suppose if there is any infection, inflammatory process is going on in the pinna, then what will happen? There some lymph nodes will ultimately enlarge. So which group? Because of the lymphatic drainage. Now one is preauricular or parotid group of the lymph node. Preauricular means this is auricle, so preauricular will be anterior to your pinna. So preauricular or parotid group of the lymph node. Then mastoid group of the lymph node, it is actually on the posterior aspect. Then upper group of the deep cervical lymph node in the neck region. So any inflammatory process, if it is on the auricle or pinna, then what will happen? That infection may spread to these groups of the lymph node. Then come to the external acoustic meatus, which is another part of the external ear. So external acoustic meatus extends from your deepest part of the concha up to the tympanic membrane. So tympanic membrane lies on the medial aspect, and your lateral aspect, it is open. So lateral aspect through which we can put our finger. So this is our lateral aspect. And medial aspect, it is closed by tympanic membrane. So length is around 24 millimeter, or you can say 2.4 centimeter along its posterior wall, not the anterior wall, because posterior wall is more longer than the anterior wall. Then external acoustic meatus does not follow a straight, it is not a straight line, it is not in a straight line. So what happened? Outer part means it is directed upwards, backwards and medially, upwards, backwards and medially. Inner part directed downwards, forwards and medially. So direction is different. See here, outer part it is backward, while inner part is forward. So ultimately there is just like a L. So why this direction is necessary? Because when you want to put some instrument through the external acoustic meatus to see the tympanic membrane, then what will happen? You have to pull the pinna to make straight the external acoustic meatus, or otherwise if you try to put the instrument through the external acoustic meatus directly without pulling or without making straight the external acoustic meatus, then what will happen? It may injure your external acoustic meatus. So each wall, that means your external acoustic meatus wall, consists of elastic cartilage as well as bone, because our pinna is cartilaginous structure. So the lateral part of the external acoustic meatus is mainly cartilaginous, while medial part is bony, because it is in the temporal bone. So throughout its length, external acoustic meatus covered with skin. So lateral 1/3, it is made up of cartilage, an extension from the some part of the auricular cartilage. That means this lateral 1/3, it is actually extension of the cartilage of our pinna or auricle. Then skin, already I have said, external acoustic meatus completely covered with skin. Now this skin of the pinna is extending actually. This was skin covering this part that is lateral 1/3 is thick and contains hair as well as ceruminous or pilosebaceous gland, which these ceruminous glands secrete air wax or cerumen. Now what will happen, as it is lateral 1/3 is having hair follicle, having the gland, so what will happen, there is a chance of infection of the hair follicle as well as glands, sebaceous glands or your ceruminous glands. Now what will happen, there is your infection. Ultimately, chances of infection is more on the lateral 1/3 because of the presence of your hair follicle and glands. While medial 2/3 of the external acoustic meatus, it is inside the bony tunnel in the temporal bone. When you see the temporal bone, you can see one tunnel or canal that is on the lateral aspect, that is your medial 2/3 of the external acoustic meatus. This part is also covered by skin, but it is comparatively thin and devoid of hair follicle and ceruminous glands. Now ceruminous glands is present in the outer aspect. As this ceruminous glands secrete some your sticky wax or cerumen, by means of this sticky secretions, what will happen if some dust particle is entering? These are get trapped. By this, it will stick to the by means of the cerumen, and ultimately it acts as it will form the air wax, which we have to clean properly. And if this air wax is more, it may obstruct your external acoustic meatus, and it may hamper in your auditory function of the ear. Then diameter of the external acoustic meatus varies. It is wider laterally and narrow medially, because in the medial aspect it is a bony canal, so it is more narrow, while it is lateral aspect it is more larger in size. Then your clinical importance. What are the clinical importance of pinna? It is a source of several graft materials. So this pinna can be used as a graft materials. Then ear lobule, which is pierced for wearing earrings. Nowadays both boys and girls are wearing nowadays. Earlier only used to buy girls. Nowadays everyone. So hair are confined to the outer part of the meatus. So furuncle, which is an infection of the hair follicle, it may develop in the outer part. So infection of the external auditory meatus, it is very painful because it is very tightly, the skin is very tightly adhered to the underlying structures. So there is a very little space. But that is why once there is an infection, some edematous fluid may ultimately form, which will have to accommodate in a very small area, and ultimately it will be more painful. So earwax prevents the injury of the lining epithelium as well as of the tympanic membrane. But excess earwax, it impairs the hearing. So irritation of this posterior or external acoustic meatus, this posterior wall, it is supplied by vagus nerve. Now, if this vagus nerve, suppose during some instrumentation or some procedure to clean the external acoustic meatus, if we put some fluid, we are actually putting some fluid to clean the external acoustic meatus. Now, what may happen? It may irritate the vagus nerve, and ultimately there may be cough or death also. Death may occur due to the cardiac arrest, because vagus nerve is cardio-inhibitory in nature. That is why children's, actually particularly children's, and if we give a slap over the ear, then what may happen? It may cause injury to the vagus nerve and or irritate the vagus nerve, and ultimately there may be your sudden death due to the cardiac arrest. Then come to the tympanic membrane, which is that external acoustic meatus is closed by the tympanic membrane, or you can say tympanic membrane separates the external ear from the middle ear. So tympanic membrane separates so thin. It is a tympanic membrane that your structures already you have seen in the diagram. So tympanic membrane, it is transparent membrane, and thickness is around 0.1 millimeter. So it is very thin, 0.1 millimeter thick. Shape is oval. It is oval in shape, measuring around 9 to 10 millimeter in length. So if you measure from the upper part to lower part, then it is your 9 to 10 millimeter, while wide, which means your anteroposterior diameter, that is your 8 to 9 millimeter, it is width. So it is not placed in a straight vertically, it is placed obliquely. Suppose if this is the external acoustic meatus, then it is lateral aspect, it is the medial aspect. This is the base of the external or floor of the external acoustic meter. So it is placed obliquely. It is not in a vertical position. It is placed obliquely and it is making an angle of 55 degree, with your floor of the external acoustic meatus. So tympanic membrane, it faces downwards, forwards and laterally. Downward, then forward and laterally. It is not for facing posteriorly. It is downward, forward and medially. Laterally. Then lateral surface faces inferiorly and anteriorly. So inferior lateral, this is lateral surface, this is medial surface. So lateral surface faces inferiorly and anteriorly. So this point is important for your direction is more important, because if there is suppose pus in the middle cavity, then what will happen? It will bulge towards the external acoustic meter. So your direction will be obliterated. Okay. So if suppose there is a rupture in the tympanic membrane, then this direction will not maintain. So when you examine the external acoustic meatus to see the tympanic membrane then you can see that your direction is not maintaining. So it is important clinically. So around the periphery, around this periphery of the tympanic membrane, there is a fibrocartilaginous ring. Because it is fitted, this tympanic membrane will have to fit inside the bony ring. There is a bony sulcus in the petrous part of the temporal bone where it gets fit. By now, how it will fit? That peripheral part of the tympanic membrane, there is a fibrocartilaginous ring, and through this fibrocartilaginous ring, it will ultimately get fitted into the petrous part of the tympanic membrane. So at the center, you see there is at this center of the tympanic membrane, it is actually there is a concavity. If we see from the lateral aspect, we can see there is a concavity at the center, and this concavity is called umbo. Now why this concavity? That means something, it is from the medial aspect, it is pulled by some structure. Now what is that structure? That is the lower end of the handle of the malleus. So that extends on, you have seen at the center. So this is a malleus bone, this is handle of the malleus. Now this handle of the malleus, it is attached to the tympanic membrane from the medial aspect. That bone we cannot see from the external surface, from the external acoustic meatus. Only that concavity we can see, which is pulled by the attachment of the handle of the malleus to the tympanic membrane. So these points of attachment is called umbo. Now handle of malleus, that is if you see that this handle of the malleus, then in the upper aspect of the handle of the malleus, you just go up, there is one elevation in the tympanic membrane we can see, that is due to the lateral process of the malleus. So this is the lateral process of malleus. So this is due to this, there is one elevation. Now from this anterior and posterior aspect, there is a fold. This fold is there, anterior fold, then there is a posterior fold. There is a fold. Now why these folds? This handle, malleus means here just like a hammer. So in the hammer, what happened? One handle is there and one anterior fold and one posterior part. So this anterior part and posterior part of the malleus, what will happen? There is a fold. We can see a fold in that is called anterior malleolar fold, posterior malleolar fold. So we can see these two fold in the malleus, in the tympanic membrane. So at the upper part, a small bulge in the membrane that marks the position of the lateral process of the malleus, that is the center. Then on the internal surface of the membrane, there is an anterior and posterior malleolar fold which extends from the lateral process. Then superior to these folds, this part of the tympanic membrane, we call it as pars flaccida. So tympanic membrane, pars flaccida, flaccid means it is thin. So tympanic membrane above the folds, that is anterior malleolar fold, posterior malleolar fold, the tympanic membrane is thin and loose and it appears partly pink when we examine through the tympanic membrane, external acoustic meatus, we can this appearance, this pink color, we can see this pink color, that is above, upper part is pink while lower part is of the tympanic membrane is it is a bit whitish color. So this upper part is called your pars flaccida. Now rest of the membrane that is thick and taut, that is called pars tensa. So it becomes more tense there in comparison to the upper part. So as it is more tense, what will happen? This pars tensa, there is a chance of rupture is more in the pars tensa, because already it is get tense. If somehow some structure will just injure, it may get rupture. So pars tensa is the lower part, pars flaccida is the upper part of our tympanic membrane. So structures of the tympanic membrane. So it is made up of 3 layers from lateral to the medial, or you can say outer to the inner. Outer cuticular layer. So cuticular means it is skin. So it is covered by, so it is towards the external acoustic meatus. So it is your stratified squamous epithelium, and it is also having continuous with skin of the external auditory meatus. Then middle part, it is a middle layer is your fibrous layer, encloses the handle of the malleus and contain outer radiating and inner. That means these fibers, middle layer is fibrous layer, so it is made up of fiber. Now how these fibers are arranging? Outer fibers are radiating manner, while inner fibers are in a circular manner. Then inner, most inner, that means it is towards the middle ear cavity. So it is your mucosal layer, inner mucosal layer. It is lined by columnar epithelium and continuous with the mucous lining of the middle ear cavity, because it is towards the middle ear cavity. Then parts, already I have said there are 2 parts. One is pars tensa, lower part is called pars tensa, upper part is called pars flaccida, which is divided by the anterior and posterior malleolar folds of your malleus bone. Then surfaces, one is lateral surface, which is concave. Lateral surface is concave due to the umbo, and it is concavity towards the meatus, external acoustic meatus, and directed downwards, forwards, and laterally. Medial surface, as it is a lateral surface is concave, so medial surface will be definitely convex. So medial surface is convex, bulges towards the middle ear cavity. Now if inside the middle ear cavity too much fluid is there, then what will happen? That this concavity, this is obliterated. So points of maximum convexity is called umbo. Then surface receives the attachment of the malleus, that is medial surface, it receives the attachment of the malleus, already I have said. Now come to the artery supply. Arterial supply, that is outer surface of the tympanic membrane or towards the external acoustic meatus. It is by deep auricular artery, which is a branch of the first part of the maxillary artery, while inner surface, that means here towards the middle ear cavity. Anterior tympanic artery, which is a branch of the first part of maxillary artery. Then posterior tympanic artery, which is a branch from the stylomastoid artery, which is arising from the posterior auricular artery. Venous drainage, from the outer surface it drains into the external jugular vein, while from the inner surface it goes to the transverse sinus and pterygoid venous plexus. So it is ultimately going to the dural venous sinuses. Nerve supply, sensory nerve of the skin, that is sensory nerve supply, that is skin, that is the outer surface of the tympanic membrane, primarily by trigeminal nerve. Then additional supply, that sensory supply, it receives from facial as well as vagus also. Sensory innervation of the mucous membrane, that is the inner surface in towards the middle ear cavity, it is mainly by the glossopharyngeal nerve. It is entirely glossopharyngeal. So medial surface is supplied by glossopharyngeal, while lateral surface is mainly by trigeminal, supplemented by facial and vagus. Lymphatic drainage to the superficial parotid, then mastoid and superficial cervical group of the lymph node. Now come to the middle ear cavity. So this is our middle ear cavity inside the petrous part of the temporal bone, and it is filled with your air. Basically it is filled up with air. There is no fluid, only air is there If fluid is collected, that means it is having some inflammatory process in the middle ear, and it is lined by though it is inside the bone, but it is lined by mucous membrane. So mucous membrane lined space contain air. It is situated in the petrous part of the temporal bone. So middle ear cavity lies between the external ear and internal ear. So this is internal ear. So it is between the external and internal ear. So main function is transmission of the sound wave. So sound wave will come through the external acoustic meatus. So sound wave will come, then it's stuck on the tympanic membrane, then tympanic membrane will move, then that your sound wave is transmitted into a mechanical wave, then this mechanical wave is transmitting through the bones of the middle ear cavity, then it will ultimately transmitting into the inner ear, which will ultimately convert it into a wave in the fluid. That wave is called, one term is there, no? Which is wave in the fluid. Okay, I will come that term. Actually, for in physics you have got, but I forgot this term, particular term. Now come to this. So function is conduction, that will conduct the sound from the outer ear to the inner ear. Then protection, so it creates a barrier, protects the middle ear as well as the inner ear from the foreign objects. Then middle ear muscles may provide protection from the loud sound. Suppose if there is a loud sound is transmitting from the external acoustic through this external acoustic meatus, what will happen? It will come to the tympanic membrane. Then tympanic membrane will move more. Then ultimately there will be more vibration in the external acoustic meatus, ear ossicles. But by means of some muscles which is present in the middle ear, it will prevent the turbulence of the ear ossicles, so that it will not transmitting to the internal ear. Then transducer, which converts the acoustic energy to the mechanical energy and mechanical energy to the hydraulic. That word, hydraulic energy. Hydraulic. So ultimately in the internal air, it goes to the fluid. So that is called hydraulic energy. And it makes as an amplifier also. Middle ear, it acts as an amplifier which transform the transformer action of the middle ear. Now come to the shape of the middle ear cavity. It is just a cube. That means, as I am saying cube, that means it is having 6 walls: anterior, posterior, medial, lateral, upper and lower. So compressed from side to side. So it is, though it is a cube, so it is compressed from both the sides. So it is compressed from both the sides. It is not like your actual cube. So it will be compressed. So middle part is more, diameter is more less, while upper and lower part diameter is more. So we will come to that. So measurements. So vertical diameter. So vertical diameter is around 15 millimeter. While anterior posterior diameter we cannot show here. Anterior posterior diameter is also 15 millimeter. Transverse diameter. Now come to the transverse diameter. This transverse diameter at the roof. At the roof it is 6 millimeter, while at the center actually, though here it is shown as a same that of the upper, but it is not actual, because at the middle part it get compressed, because our tympanic membrane is concave at the center. So ultimately at the center it is your 2 millimeter, while at the floor again it is 4 millimeter. So middle part is more narrow, transverse diameter is more less, while upper part at the roof it is diameter is very more, and at the roof floor again it is slightly smaller than the upper aspect. So communication of the middle ear. Now middle ear, it communicates anteriorly. In the diagram you can see, suppose this is the middle ear, so anterior wall, through that anterior wall it gets communicated with a pharyngotympanic tube or eustachian tube, which opens into your nasopharynx. Then posteriorly, go to posteriorly there is a opening that is called a mastoid antrum. These are mastoid antrum and mastoid air cells. the mastoid air cells. So posteriorly we are having the bone. So this bone is the mastoid bone, and inside the mastoid bone we are having some mastoid air cells. So through the posterior wall, it is communicating to the medullary cavity. Medullary cavities get communicated to the mastoid antrum and mastoid air cells through the opening which is called edditas to mastoid antrum. Then come to the contents of the medullary. So already I have said it is air filled space. So it is content is one is air. Next is three small air bones, or it is also known as air ossicles. Malleus, incus, stapes. These are the three bones. Then two muscles. One is tensor tympani. One is stapedius. Then two nerves, chorda tympani, tympanic plexus. Then vessels supplying and draining the medullary cavity. Then ligaments of the air ossicles, because these air ossicles, malleus, incus, stapes, they are intercommunicated. So in these by means of some ligaments. Now subdivisions of the medullary. Now whole medullary cavity, it is divided into three parts. So epitympanum or etic. So epitympanum is the part above the tympanic membrane. So this is that line I have drawn. So upper part. So and tympanic membrane, you just see that a tympanic, this part is lying above the tympanic membrane. So part of the medullary cavity which lies above the tympanic membrane, it is called epitympanum or etic. Part which is opposite to the tympanic membrane, that is called mesotympanum. And the part lies below the tympanic membrane, that is called hypotympanum. Hypo means lower to the tympanic membrane, that is why hypotympanum. Epitympanum, above the tympanic membrane, that is why it is called epitympanum. Meso means it is middle part, or it is against the tympanic membrane, so it is our mesotympanum. Now, as I have said, it is a cube, so it is having 6 walls, roof. So roof here. Then our anterior wall, already I have sent one link yesterday, most probably you have seen, so it is more easier for you now. So roof, then your anterior wall, this is anterior wall, then your posterior wall, this is our posterior wall, then our medial wall, we have shown the medial wall, lateral wall, that is formed by tympanic membrane, we have removed here. So we are looking from the external acoustic meter. So lateral wall we have removed. So when we remove the lateral wall, we can see the anterior part of the anterior wall, part of the posterior wall, part of the medial wall, and roof as well as floor also. So floor is also known as a jugular wall. We will come one by one. So tegmentum wall, that is the roof. So tegmentum wall, it is consists of a thin layer of bone which is called tegmen tympani. Then it separates the medullary from the middle cranial fossa and temporal bone of the brain. Suppose what happens if there is a infection in the medullary cavity, and ultimately these tegmen tympani get ruptured due to the infection, then these infection will directly communicated to the middle cranial fossa, or it may spread to the brain. Or if during some procedure, if you are injuring the tegmen tympani, ultimately you are almost ready to injure the middle cranial fossa, structures in the middle cranial fossa. Then jugular wall, that is our form, the floor, made up of again it is a thin plate. So upper and lower, both are made up of plate of bone. Upper one is called tegmen tympani, while lower one, it is also a thin plate of bone, and separates the medullary from the superior bulb of the internal jugular vein. This is the internal jugular vein, and this is the superior bulb. This is superior bulb. This is bulb will form superior bulb, and ultimately the superior bulb of the internal jugular vein is get separated from the medullary cavity by means of our thin plate of bone, or by means of floor. Now at the floor, on the medial wall, just near the medial wall, at the floor there is one small aperture or canal, and through which the glossopharyngeal nerve enters into the middle cranial fossa, and ultimately forming a plexus in the medial wall of the middle cranial fossa. They form a plexus. And from this plexus, ultimately branch is coming out to the sympathetic plexus. To form the sympathetic plexus, it will come out through the anterior wall and up to your internal carotid artery. Next, come to the anterior wall. So anterior wall formed by the thin plate of bone, because whole structure lies inside the temporal bone, petrous of the temporal bone. So definitely it is your anterior wall, posterior wall, medial wall, medial except medial wall, lateral wall, it is not formed by bone. So medial wall, it is formed by, lateral wall is formed by tympanic membrane. So anterior wall again formed by thin plate of bone. In the lower part, it separates from the middle layer from the inter. So here you see in the lower part of, so anterior wall, this anterior wall in the lower part it is separated the middle layer cavity from the internal carotid artery. Then at the lower part there is a two small apparatus, one for chorda tympani nerve. This chorda tympani nerve will come out, and another structure, another apparatus in the posterior part, in the lower part of the anterior wall. This is for your branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve will come out. So to form the plexus around the internal carotid artery. Then come to the upper part of the, so there is a two canal upper part. Two canal, one is for pharyngotympanic tube, that is the pharyngotympanic opening of the pharyngotympanic tube, by means of which middle layer cavity is communicated to the nasopharynx. And upper part, at the upper part, another one, your opening is there through which the tensor tympani muscles here comes to insert into the bones of the middle layer cavity. Then come to the posterior wall. So posterior wall, it is your posterior wall. At the upper part of the posterior wall, there is an opening that is called edditas to mastoid antrum, through which it is communicated to the mastoid air cells or mastoid air cavity. Then at the lower part, that is a chorda tympani nerve, which is there is an apparatus which is a branch of the facial nerve. So this chorda tympani nerve traversing the middle layer cavity through the posterior wall, then it goes out through the anterior wall. And just above to that, there is one eminence, bony eminence, and through this bony eminence, this is called pyramidal eminence, and through this pyramidal eminence, ultimately stapedius muscles will come to insert into the stapedius. Then you're on the posterior wall, there is two elevations, two prominence we can see. Vertical part of the facial canal. So vertical part of the facial canal. So come to this facial canal. So facial nerve will come out. It will come out, then it will form, it is on the medial wall, then vertical part. So this is your vertical part of the facial canal we can see on the posterior wall of the middle ear cavity. Then come to the medial wall. So medial wall is also known as a labyrinthine wall, because it is towards the internal ear cavity, or labyrinthine. Internal ear is also known as a labyrinthine. So it forms by bony lateral wall of the internal ear. So presents the following features. What are the features? One is the cochlear promontory. So at the middle, this is the middle, that is us. There is prominence which we can see, that is called cochlear. This is your cochlear prominence, which is known as a promontory. Due to the cochlea, this elevation is produced towards the middle ear cavity, that is called promontory. Just above and posterior, that you can say supero-posteriorly, there is an opening which is called supero-posterior to the promontory, that is a oval window. Then posterior-inferior to the promontory, there is another round opening. So there is a promontory. Promontory is due to the prominence of your cochlea, that is why it is called cochlear eminence. Then supero-posterior to the promontory, there is an oval opening which is called oval window. Then inferior to posterior-inferior to the promontory, there is one round opening which is called round window. Then above or superior to the oval window, there is another prominence, that is our prominence of facial canal. This is obliquely passing, then it becomes vertical on the posterior wall. So it is a oval that is called facial prominence of facial canal. Then above to that, at the angle between the upper and posterior wall, there is another prominence, which is prominence of the lateral semicircular canal, which is a part of the internal ear. Then come to the membranous wall. Already we know this tympanic membrane. So membranous wall, it is consist almost entirely by the tympanic membrane. So tympanic membrane does not extend superiorly into the epitympanic recess or epitympanum. That is what we have called epitympanic part of our middle ear, that is also known as a epitympanic recess. So upper part is bony. So your lateral wall, it is your middle part is membranous, upper part is bony, while lower part is also bony. Then come to the clinical correlations or clinical importance. So infection of the middle ear. If there is an infection in the external ear, then we call otitis externa. But if it is an infection of the middle ear cavity, then we call it is otitis media. It may be two types. One is chronic, one is acute. So acute means when it is suddenly occur, then we call it is acute otitis media. If it is for a long duration, then we call it is chronic otitis media, which is more common in the children, because when they take bath, water is going inside the middle ear through this external acoustic meatus, then it is ultimately, it may get infection into the middle ear also. Though water cannot go inside, but bacteria or any foreign particle may go through the water, then it will infect the membranous part of the tympanic membrane, then ultimately these may go to the middle ear cavity. Then infection from the middle ear cavity, they may get spread. Where they may get spread? To the mastoid bone. Why? Because there is a connection between the mastoid bone and the middle ear cavity through the posterior wall. So ultimately it may infect the mastoid bone. Then we call it is acute mastoiditis if it is immediate or for a short duration. Then mastoid abscess. Ultimately, this acute mastoiditis, this mastoid bone will ultimately damage completely, and there may be collection of fluid in the mastoid bone. That is called mastoid abscess. Through the roof, because roof is separating your middle cranial fossa. So in the cranial fossa, it is covered by meninges. There is the covering of the brain. So if this infection will spread superiorly, then it may cause the meningitis and even temporal lobe abscess. Then through the floor, it may go to the transverse and sigmoid sinus thrombosis. So transverse and sigmoid sinus thrombosis may ultimately by means of infection, which will go to through the floor, and ultimately they may form transverse and sigmoid sinus thrombosis, which is one of the more dangerous disease. Then labyrinthitis means infection of the internal ear. So what will happen? Infection may spread deep into the medial wall, and ultimately it may get infection to the internal ear. Then cerebellar abscess, because from the middle cranial fossa, it may go to the posterior cranial fossa, and ultimately there may be cerebellar abscess. Then paralysis of the stapedius. Stapedius is a muscle which is coming through the posterior wall of the middle ear cavity. So what may happen if this stapedius muscle is get paralyzed? What will happen? Causing hyperacusis, abnormally increased power of hearing. When there is a sound of whispering will come due to the paralysis of the stapedius, that sound may be a noise. It may annoy for that patient. He may feel that it is a noise. Though sound is whispering, but it can react the patient as your noise. Then osteosclerosis. Now what may happen? Due to the abnormal ossification of the annular ligament is the peripheral part of the tympanic membrane, which is get fitted to the bony wall. So ultimately, and again all these ear ossicles, they are interconnected by means of some ligaments. So if these ligaments are abnormally ossified, what will happen? the ultimately impaired movement of the stepes or impaired movement of the air ossicles, which may ultimately lead to cause your deafness. So that is called your transmission deafness. Now come to the auditory tube or eustachian tube. So it connects the tympanic membrane. So it connects the tympanic cavity with the pharynx by means of two opening. One is your ostium pharyngeum tubi. That means it is the opening in the nasopharynx. And ostium tympanicum tubi, that is our opening in the medullary cavity on the anterior wall of the medullary cavity. So it is having two parts. One is posterior 1/3, that is bony, while anterior 2/3 is cartilaginous. You just think of our external acoustic meatus. External acoustic meatus, what happened? Our outer 2/3 is cartilaginous, while inner 1/3 is bony. Here also your posterior 1/3 means towards the medial side, that means posterior 1/3 means our towards the medullary cavity, it is bony, while outer part is our cartilaginous. Just similar to our external acoustic meatus. Then function, it equalizes the pressure on both sides of the tympanic membrane for optimal hearing. Now what happened when inside the tympanic membrane, if the pressure is more or pressure is less, then what will happen? We cannot properly hear. Suppose when you are traveling through the air in a flight, what happen when the flight is take off at the height, what happen? You cannot hear properly and there is a feeling of pain in the ear. Then what we do? We just swallow. We just take some chocolates to chew. Then what will happen? Some pressures are ultimately we are pushing towards the medullary cavity, because at the height when we are inside the air, then what will happen? Ultimately more pressure in the external acoustic meatus. As there is a more pressure in the external acoustic meatus, tympanic membrane will be more bulged towards the medullary cavity and ultimately we cannot hear properly. Now when we are swallow, some pressure air is going to through the eustachian tube to the medullary cavity, which try to balance the air pressure inside the medullary cavity and outside the medullary cavity. Then air ossicles, already I have said malleus, incus and stapes. Then incus, then stapes. Stapes is that one is the stapes. So last, your nose, from the nose part I have given, these are the questions. So you just as an assignment, just you take a click of this question. So this is one, this is another. So these are the questions. You have taken the click?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.